From the patron saint of Wales to a network of underground tunnels, these are the stories of Llantwit Major. This is St Illtyd's Church. It is in the old part of town at the end of Church Street. The church brings in a lot of tourists from all over the country and also the world. It is seen as a site of religious pilgrimage and historical significance. While the church has been restored over the years, original elements still remain, such as artwork, stonework, and the font. The following interview with Father Edwin was to find out more about the church.
So when was the church first here? When was the first record of it being here?
Okay. The part of the church that you're in at the moment is actually the modern bit, can you believe it? And it's not because it's just been restored, it's simply because all of the existing building is relatively new. It's barely 1,000 years old. The original building is long lost in the mists of time. The first foundation here goes back to the early years of the 6th century, so that's the early 500s, when Llantwit established a monastic college here. Now, don't think of a monastery, don't think of people with a hood over their heads going around like that. It wasn't that at all. But it's often referred to as a university. It was a bit of a combination of the two. It was a community of possibly 2,000 people at its height. That's an awful lot of people. And they would have been involved, some of them would have been studying to be ordained, to end up like me as priests. And some of them would have been here just to get a good education. So you had quite a lot of people here who were the children, probably the sons, I have to say. It was a bit gender imbalanced in those days. But they would have been the children of wealthy people who would have sent their young people here to be educated. So it was a real centre of learning. And if Llantwit established it around about the early years of the 5th century, we've then got nothing in writing very much. But we've got some records that were written later by a notable person who was a Llantwit student, whose name was Samson. Now, his life tells about him being a Llantwit student here. And there are traditions around St David, the patron of Wales, coming here to study. And some of the real poster boys, if you like, of the Celtic saints, the real heroes of faith from those early Celtic centuries, I suppose starting to understand how life and faith, how all those things became explored. Would you believe I'm standing in not only the oldest bit of the church, which is this archway, I'm also standing in probably one of the few remaining bits of an 11th century building. It was built here as the original parish church. We've got two churches side by side. So this is where people would have come to worship originally. It's changed quite a lot over the years. Today we use it as just a big wide open space. But I suppose one of the features of this part of the building that everyone looks at is they look up. And there's a great, fabulous oak ceiling in here. Now, as far as we know, it's not the original. Whether the original was just not very well made or whether it was a bit dull, but around about the 14th century, that's the 1300s, this church came under the patronage of a place called Tewkesbury Abbey. And they brought, I suppose, some money and some imagination and a bit of momentum to the place. Now, the ceiling itself is fabulous because it's an oak ceiling and it's covered in coats of arms and also carvings of people's faces. My theory is, I reckon this was probably crowdfunded, okay? Now, not where you went onto a Just Giving page or something like that. No, nothing like that. But I reckon they probably went around all those people who had a bit of money in the local area, maybe they were landowners or farmers, or they knew they had a bit they could give, tapped them on the shoulder and said, can you give us a few bob, give us some money to go towards our new ceiling, our new roof here in the church. If you do, we'll give you your coat of arms. If you give us a bit more, we'll even carve your face up there. So I reckon this is all bearing witness to people in this community who all those years ago in the 14th century, crumbs, long time ago, they probably chipped in to help to give us the ceiling in here of this fabulous building and make it everything that it is today.
Some notable people from Llantwit are buried here at the church, one of them being Illtyd Nicol. He was the reverend here many years ago and lived in a big country house on the edge of town. The house is no longer standing and the site is now a residential park, but parts of the original site remain, the main one being a pond and garden. Everyone believed it was just a pond and nothing more. However, a few years ago the pond was completely drained so it could be cleaned. Site staff then found the centre had a considerable drop and some people reported that there was tunnels there. To see if there was any truth to these reports, I talked to a park resident.
What's the story with the tunnels around here?
Well, they're not actually tunnels. They were more like culverts, which you could crawl along. There's a culvert behind the battlements, which fed into the pond, and the pond is really it's just a watering feature. It is really where the ladies of the manor used to bathe their feet, because it goes down in steps, and you know, so there's quite a deep area. It's about 15 foot, I believe, and the ladies of the manor then, and the ladies and the guests, they used to you know, bathe their feet in the pond or pool. The other tunnel then, which goes down to the stream, to the Hodnant, and that was the overflow then. That if you know, if the pool got a little bit too full, but it was virtually a freshwater pool.
So the story of the smuggling tunnels, is that somewhere else?
Oh, the smuggling tunnels. So the smuggling tunnels would be up in Llantwit. Yeah, there is talk of the smugglers' tunnel from Tresillian, but it's conjecture whether it goes to St Doris Castle or indeed to Llantwit. The Swan was one of the places that were mentioned, because the Swan was a smuggler's haunt of many years ago.
Where Tresillian Caves is between St Donat's and here, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it could have gone either to St Donat's or Llantwit, so no one really knows.
Nobody knows, because the actual cave, the entrance to the cave, right at the back of the cave, there's you know, it's bricked up. I think it's all sealed up now. The pebbles and everything are pushed right into it. But years ago, when we were, you know, youngsters, we could walk right deeply into the cave, and you could see the bricked up tunnel. So
there was actually a tunnel there.
There was a tunnel there, yeah, but
you didn't know which way it went.
No.
Moving on from Graham's comments regarding the old Swan Inn being a smuggler's haunt, the pub was the next place to go. The pub is located in the square in the old part of Llantwit Major. It is a medieval building, and being around for this long means it's had its fair share of different visitors, including in the early 20th century famous people such as the American newspaper tycoon William Randolph Hearst and Charlie Chaplin, amongst others. Charlie, the bar manager, provided some more information about the pub's history.
Yeah, so what is the oldest part of the pub?
Oldest part of the pub. So a lot of what you can see is 16th century, but the original building that was here was 11th century. This part here, going back this way, is the oldest part. This has pretty much always been a bar. And then this part of the pub extended out in the 16th century, and this is where you had your mint. There was a mint during the Civil War, so it's about 16th century. In terms of what you can actually see, most of it is 16th century. These wooden pillars are all ex-masts from ships. It's all pretty much original stonework as well. The windows are original as well, so a lot of the parts of the pub are original parts of the pub, most of which are 16th century. But yeah, you've got this side that was the mint when it was.
They actually ran the smuggling operations from here, and they named the gentleman who was the chief smuggler.
Knight, isn't it? His name
Yeah.
is something Knight. I can't remember now.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure which room that would have been.
No.
But I mean, they're old. There's, you talk about the pirates and that.
Yeah.
There's little routes underneath the pub, all across here, all under the road leading to the White Hart, leading to the town hall. There's a lot of hidden passages in here actually. If I could take you through into the restaurant, there's a hidden passage that takes you up into the roof. But got the right key. Yeah. Here we are. So this is our boiler room. Obviously has different things over the years, but if we look up here, you can see like a little doorway. You see the little door? Little hatch just about in the back there. That leads you up into the roof. And part of their kind of community was smuggling and bringing things into Barry to be exported out of here. And yeah, the more digging you do, the more you realise how twisted it was around here in the 17th, 18th century. Moving things like spices, sugar was a big one, smuggling sugar, and other things like that really. And if you look under all of the roads in Llantwit, there's hidden tunnels all the way down to the beach. It's quite crazy to think like how many different hidden passages. There's a lot of hidden